What is up, locker heads? I'm back with another storage storage locker stories part 2. This one is going to deal with a question I'm frequently asked, and I was actually just asked in the first storage lockers video, and it's a common theme that I'm asked by. This one was by Destroyer 76, and it's about if the storage companies are honest or like if they go through the stuff or not. And it's a complicated question. It really is because it varies from location to location. So the question is, because I mumble jumbled that one. When you buy a locker, especially ones that have been cut ahead of time, are they honest about what's inside, or have they gone through it? And there is, like I said, it's a little bit of a complicated answer, and I'm gonna go into it. I have like 3 stories that I'm gonna reference. There's a lot more stories overall, but I'm gonna use 3 specific stories that really stand out. And but the overall answer, in my opinion, is the majority of them are legit or close to legit. Um, I've been buying on because one of the reasons I hesitated with switching from live to online was because all the lockers have to be pre-cut. So that to me was like that automatically gives them a chance to go through everything. Because like a lot of the places when I was started out live, it wasn't pre-cut. It was all cut in front of you. But then like later on, it started becoming almost every facility except one chain of facilities were cutting it beforehand because they need to take pictures for the customers and for their records to show that nothing was disturbed. And yeah, so it's a little it varies, but I switched to online and I took the risk. And the way I did it was I started by bidding not higher than, I think it was like $300 per unit, because I felt like, well, per unit per facility, like because I wanted to test out the facilities essentially. So what I did was any facility I wanted to try out, I wouldn't bid more than $300, maybe 350 if the room looked really good. And what that did is it gave me the ability to go there, meet the staff first of all, because that sometimes is a big thing. Because if you have nasty staff, first of all, you might not want to go back even if the rooms are good, just because it could turn into a headache and you can end up getting banned from this facility, which you might end up getting banned from the chain. So first of all, it gives you a chance to meet the staff. Second, when you get to go there, you get to really see if the staff went through the stuff, because like you could kind of tell if somebody's rummaged through it really quickly. You don't know if it's the staff or the previous owners, but you know, why would somebody pay? I mean, yeah, they ended up not paying, but that usually the lock usually happens when people are intending to still pay. So why would somebody leave just boxes? You know what I mean? Like who pays to store just empty boxes? So that's like the first indicator for me is when, obviously if there's like, this is what happens with me a lot. You'll find like a new iPhone 6 or 7, which depending on what time of year you go. Like for us, it's still like you find the iPhone 6 case because the iPhone 7 just came out. So usually though, if you find the iPhone 6 case, there's probably either an old or broken iPhone 5 in the locker because they have the box for the new one and they have no need to use the old one. So then if there's no iPhone 5, sometimes that's like a little bit of a giveaway. Like, where's the old one? And yeah, sometimes people sell it or this or that. But in my experiences, usually you find it. Or if like there's a new box for an iPad, usually find the old one either broken or just not in use anymore. And consistently, that's happened with me, where I find the old version of the new box. Like say there's the iPad 2. I find the old iPad. And it's just been a consistent thing. So when I don't find it, I'm usually a little hesitant. And then another thing you do is if there is like a jewelry box or a watch box in there, usually if it's empty or it looks like it's been like gone through, that means the facility is probably going through it quick because I've had I'm going to go into experiences, but I've had experiences where you can tell like if somebody knows that they're going to be abandoning their unit, they don't have to go through the stuff fast like at all. So they could take the whole jewelry box if they wanted. Like if they're like, "Oh, well I don't have room for my all this entire locker." They could just take their jewelry box, they could take their, you know, whatever, iPhone or speakers or whatever it is. They could just take that. They don't have to rush. But when somebody only has because their managers are making sure that they're not like going through it fast. I mean, going through everything. They only have X amount of time to take the picture because there's like, especially by me, there's usually a lot of rooms up in each facility because I live in New York and there's usually double or triple than if you're in like a more of a rural area, like a country area, rural area, whatever. Usually there's more units up, so you have to go through it quick. And like sometimes there's 50 units in one facility in Brooklyn or Queens, and or especially the Bronx. So they don't really have time to go through it that fast. So they would have to hurry. So seeing like a jewelry box skewed like that or something like that, or boxes with the top just ripped off and looked through quick, that's a bad sign that somebody went through it. And these are just little things. There's a few other ones that you see, like there's just things that you look for. And one thing I've noticed is that, believe it or not, in the more urban areas where you have a higher volume, like I said, they don't have time to go through stuff because they have so many that they have to shoot. They have so many customers walking in constantly. In New York City, where I live, but the one guy who asked if I live in New Orleans, no, I'm just a huge Saints fan for years since I'm like 7, 8, 9 years old, somewhere in that area. I don't remember. My grandfather used to bring me to the games when he had the season tickets to the Jets when I was a little kid. But in the urban areas, believe it or not, I've have less experience with lockers being tampered with, like a lot less, because there's such a higher volume and they have more customers constantly, so they don't really have the time. And also, one of the things is they can't predict if a person's gonna pay. So a lot of it has to do with, yeah, they could go through it, but if the person pays and their stuff is missing, which I've actually seen happen, one of the customers was actually in the office saying that their stuff was missing. So in the city, you don't when there's 50 lockers, you can't predict who's gonna pay from experience and stuff. So you can't steal their stuff and then so when you're going through it, you steal the stuff from the locker, but then they pay. So now you're in an even worse predicament because if they come in and pay, you can't go put it back because they go with you. So it's harder in the city, but in Long Island or more like the rural areas, I've had more experiences with lockers being rigged. I don't know. I cannot say 100%, but just from my experience, you could kind of tell. I'm going to start off with this experience. I bought a locker in, I don't remember, Hicksville, I think. And I paid $3,800 for it. But there was 50 boxes of Jordans, 2 PS4s, an Xbox One, 2 Blu-ray players, a home sound surround system, all these boxes for all these things. I don't know why, but I felt like it was going to be a good locker. And I never had been there before. And this is a mistake I made, and I really regret it because that's not normally how I do it. Because usually, like I said, if I've never been to a place, the max I usually bid is $300 because I don't trust until I get to see it firsthand. But I just got caught up in this room. I'd been doing really well. I had a lot of money stashed. So I was like, you know what? Let me give it a shot. And I did, and I won it. And as soon as I got there, I could just tell, like, the people behind the counter seemed very, like, I just knew right away that I was going to be rigged or swindled or whatever. I don't think this would even belong to a person. I think the facility manager just happened to take stuff that was supposed to be garbage and set it up really nice. Every single pair of Jordan boxes was empty. Who stores just Jordan boxes? Like, every single PS4 box was empty. Everything. There was slot cars where it was only the tracks with no car. There was none of the Xbox One wasn't there. The PSPs weren't there. Every single box was empty, and it makes no sense to because it was like a pretty big room that the person was paying $200-300 a month for supposedly. Who pays $300 a month just to store boxes? It doesn't make any sense. Like there was guitar cases that were completely empty. Who doesn't store their guitar in the guitar case? Like why? Like everybody I know that owns a guitar, and unless they have it on the display, and there was like 4 guitar cases, so they're not probably not. Most people don't display 4 guitars. All of them were empty, and it made no sense. So that was one time I got screwed, and I really should have tested out the place. And from what I heard from other people, because I know I don't go to live auctions that much anymore, but as I'm cleaning out lockers, especially in like Brooklyn and the Bronx and Queens, I run into them. And when I told someone like what happened, they're like, "Oh, Hicksville?" He's like, "Yeah, I think it was Hicksville. I don't want to bash Hicksville because I'm not 100% sure, but it was either Hicksville or very close to Hicksville." And he's like, "Oh, that facility?" He was like, "They do that all the time." He's like, there were like one time there was a locker full of Prada boxes, and the person paid 11,700 for it, and not one box had one Prada thing in it. So it was like, what do you call it? It was their MO. They do that, and it's because I guess if the guy rents something in his wife's, because you could even like rent it in a friend's name or wife's name, and then any money that's over the rent owed, the check goes to the person. So if you're able to set it up like that, I mean, I can't. Nobody could prove it, but it's not like it was the only time it happened. Like that person told me a story. Another person actually told me the same story about the Prada boxes. Um, there was like a few other people that give me stories like similar to that, where even if everything wasn't missing, it was definitely at least dummied up the rooms to look better than they actually were. Like they put bins, like they made sure the bins were stacked really nice, I guess, even though the bins had nothing in them. Um, so that's one example, and that to me is the most extreme example. That's like that's like intentionally like misleading people, which I know a lot of people don't like us as storage locker buyers, even though there's state lien laws, and the only reason our job exists is because there's no other way for the facility to get rid of the stuff than either throw it out or try and resell it to get some of the money back that they're owed for the land that they rent. Just like if somebody doesn't, pay your rent. Like if I don't pay my rent, I get evicted. Just like if you don't pay your locker bill, you get evicted. So instead of the locker companies just throwing it out, which I think they did before the 70s, now they auction it off so they can recoup some of the money that they're owed, and you sign a contract with that. But the next example I'm going to say is more of like an on the fly, I guess, riggage, which is, what do you call it? This was in Queens, and this was at a facility where I used to go for live auctions, and they would cut the locker beforehand. And a lot of because this was only my second or third room, I can't remember exactly, or no, second or third auction, not room, because my second room was the first one, but it was my second or third auction. I don't remember if it was the second or the third, because I know I went to a lot. I've went to a lot of auctions, but so all the locker buyers, the veterans, I would say. I don't consider myself a veteran yet because I'm still learning so much all the time. But now I have experience in the game. And then I heard them talking. I thought they were all joking when they said like, "Oh, this is one of those facilities where you're never gonna find gold. You're never gonna find gold." And I was like, "What?" And lo and behold, I went a room. I paid, I think, 400 to 500, somewhere in that range for it, because there was suitcases, which I love. Like even to this day, I still buy suitcases because sometimes people just leave stuff in there from their trips. Um, there was I could see costume jewelry, and it looked Indian, and I saw some saris, and I know saris aren't cheap, like especially the really good quality ones. So when I bought it, I was excited. Start going through the boxes. I come across a box with a jewelry box. The top of the box is ripped open, and most of the actual ones on the top were all ripped open. So inside the one that looks really rustled, and other than that box, other than the top boxes, most of the boxes are packed very neatly. So the top of the box is ripped open, and the jewelry box was ripped out, and you could see like a few earrings that like I guess they missed, like that were on the floor or on the top of the box. But you could tell like somebody was looking just for a jewelry box because they ripped it open, and they only did it on the top boxes, so they were doing it fast because they were on a limited time. So to me, that indicates that the person who had to take the pictures for the records was the one that went through it, and they did it quick because they knew that the auction was happening. So they knew that they didn't have to worry about the people coming and paying. Even though there is sometimes where that does happen, but it's very rarely. Usually, if by the time the auction happens live, the person's not going to pay. I think in the 3 years I've been doing this, that's happened twice. So, it's not really that big of a risk for them. And the only reason because at first I was like, oh, maybe it was the family that took it. But if it was the family that would have taken it, because it was like an entire like household. If it was the family that would have taken it, they would have taken a lot of the other valuable stuff that was in there. There was like $2,000 worth of sunglasses. There was all these like saris that it's stuff that could have fit in a car. There was like 4 boxes and a suitcase with like $4 or $5,000 worth of stuff in it, and like they know where their stuff is. The boxes were actually where the box. I don't know if the boxes were marked, but it was easy to access the boxes. And if the family had packed the stuff, they knew exactly where everything was. And it wasn't packed a long time ago because there was like college books in there or whatever with stuff from, I think it said like earlier that year, or yeah, from earlier that year. So it's not like they packed the boxes like 5 years before and couldn't remember. This was all, pretty new. So I feel like if it was the family, if they're gonna take the jewelry, first of all, they would have probably taken the entire jewelry box, because why would you just rip it out of the drawers? And second, there was a bunch of like Coach, Prada, Versace, Gucci, like sunglasses, and then there was like just I can't remember exactly, but like the saris all sold, like we sold them for like $30 a piece. And I know they probably paid about $200 a piece for them because they were all beautifully made. They weren't like the cheap ones you go buy at like some cheap store. They were all like really handmade, beautiful ones. They weren't like machine made or any of that. They were all beautiful, and like to me, that's stuff that if it was the family, they would have taken. So that's another experience. I mean, you're gonna deal with that though. It sucks, but for the most part, like I said, I have maybe 10 stories where lockers were touched in 3 years. But I think that's because I do stay more in the city. Because I'm going to give you like 2 or 3 examples of the city. There was one locker pretty recently. I actually videotaped it. I was going to make an episode about it, but I don't know what happened. Oh, I deleted it. I deleted all the stuff on my phone on accident because I was trying to install Hearthstone. And as soon as you open the door, literally sitting right there was a iMac or an like the MacBook Pro, something like that. You know, the Mac laptop. I don't know what it's called. I'm not a Mac guy, but it was sitting right there, and I'm like, it was a newer model. It was like 2013. So I'm like, if they're gonna steal something, that's such an easy thing to steal right there. It's literally it was right there. It wasn't like under anything. It was literally right there. And then behind it, there was all like clothes or whatever. Like, but if you were taking the picture, you would have seen it because you could see the top of the boxes, and even in the picture that I bid on, there was, I think, like 20 pairs of Jordans. Why not? Even if you take 2 or 3 pairs, but you could tell the clothes were still like on top of it, and there was dust everywhere. You could see that the dust wasn't disturbed. That was in Broadway, the Brooklyn place in Broadway. I give them shout out props because they didn't touch anything. And then what was the other well, that one you couldn't tell, but there was in St. Albans. Same thing. It wasn't a laptop, but it was the tablet, an iPad. It was like an iPad 2. It was sitting right in plain view. Like, why not just, if you're gonna steal and take stuff from the locker, there's an iPad 2 sitting right there. Even if you don't want it, you can sell it very easily on eBay, or you can even take it to a pawn shop, anywhere. Still right there. It's like, so there are so many, like I said, I would say 95% of facilities around that percentage, a high percentage, are very honest and not rigged at all. They don't try and screw you over. They don't try and dummy it up. That could be because I go to the city more, and like I was saying earlier, the city has a lot higher amount of units, so maybe they just, it's not worth it. It's not worth the chance. But most of the ones in the city, from my experience, are very good. And the one thing, when I was doing live, like, I always tried to look for the facilities that cut the lock in front of you, because I know you can just cut it beforehand and put a new lock on. But I know most of the people that do the auctions, and they're not gonna take the time to do that or waste the money on locks in case there's nothing in anything. So, all right. Uh, Give me some more comments about some topics you want to talk about next time. I love the info. I love the feedback you guys have been giving me. Um, I love the questions. I want more questions so I can keep doing this. I really enjoy doing this. So just let me know what you want to talk about next. I think I'm gonna maybe for the next one I might talk about some of the grossest things I found, or some of the most expensive. I don't know. I'm gonna see how I feel the next time I go to do one of these. But it's definitely gonna be something like that. And then if you guys comment, just let me know some of the stuff you want to know. And remember, who's your daddy? Have a good day, guys.